always like, I don't take compliments very well. So when I hear someone saying, oh, you did this and you did that, it's kind of like, it's hard for me to hear. So I'm working on that. Part of my character defects, right? So, I'm Cyrus. I am an alcoholic. I am an addict. I'm an adult child of an alcoholic. I'm codependent. And I have excessive compulsive disorder.
Whee!
Yay! But, so what I'd like to say, or I'd like to kind of, bring the vibe into the room, and get us set for a little talk. I'd like to qualify this really quick. I used to think there was really something wrong with me because anytime someone said the word God, I would bristle with antagonism. I did not want to hear the word God at all. I had no way of understanding what God was in my life or any of that. So what happened was along the way, I'm the kind of guy that didn't have any trust. I didn't trust anybody. I came from a not so good upbringing, a lot of disappointment in my childhood, physical and verbal, abuse, I guess we call it, for lack of a better word. But I didn't understand anything that I couldn't prove. If there was no proof, if the money wasn't in your hand and it wasn't crackling the right way and I didn't have it under the light looking for the string, I didn't believe it was real. So for me, when people were saying, okay, Jesus Christ, my Savior, my Lord, my this, my that, and if you believe this and this is going to happen, I was like, there's no way that I'm believing any of that or any other religion because there's no proof. And if I can't prove it, I'm not going to believe it, right? So I'm here to tell you today that I did find proof of the existence of a higher power, right? And it's empirical proof, right? So what I'd like to do is I'd like to invite the God of our misunderstanding or the God of our understanding to this space. And, I'd like to ask that God of my understanding, right? I'd like to ask that God of my understanding, right, to use me as an instrument, right? That hopefully what I say today will not be of me, right? That it'll be of that sentient being that I've come to understand as God, right? So I'd like to open this up by saying a serenity prayer. I'm sure you're all familiar with that. A little moment of silence, we'll say the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Right. So here we are. I thought that I was definitely going to wrest satisfaction out of this life, and that on my own willpower that I was going to do it better and get it right the next time. I'd be in prison for a long period of time. There's a difference between county jail and prison. I guess you all know that. So I'd be in prison for a long stint of time. And then all that time that I was in prison, I was, talking to all the different inmates and I'm figuring out, and I've got a notebook and I'm going to make a plan and I'm going to get it better. I'm going to get it right this time. First, when I get out, I'm going to do this. Then I'm going to do that. And I'm going to do it like this and I'm going to do it like that. And I'm just going to rise right to the top. And that was my problem. My problem was that, I came from a lot of trauma. Then I created and put myself through a lot of trauma. So there was the trauma that was not of my making, that was just circumstantial trauma. And then there was the trauma that I imposed on myself, the things that I put myself through, and that caused me to have these reactions, these traumatic responses in my life. So I was one of those unfortunates, right? I'd hear it read in the big book initially. I'd come into a couple of meetings. I'd be, they had when I was in the county jail, the meetings were a way to get somewhere so you could pass some contraband to another pod or another floor or another place, or you can get some free donuts, or maybe they had a lady speaker coming in, or whatever that was, right? So I would go into the AA rooms and I would hear, some of the readings, and I would hear some of the words, and along the way I would hear that, there are such unfortunates, and I thought I was that unfortunate one. That there was just no way that I could be part of something like that. I was not a part of, I was separate than, and I was terminally unique. No question about it. If anyone can relate to that. And so we're a whole lot of special people here today. Right. So, what it was like for me, it was just a big mess, right? I rolled through my life, using and engaging in reckless behavior and doing some not so savory things, which just compounded my mental illness, and I was ill. I wasn't well. And, as I went along, I went to prison, and okay, that's my bottom, right? Came out and went to prison again. Okay, that's my bottom, right? Came out and I died. And I woke up with the guy hitting me again with the paddles in the ambulance. Okay, that's it. I died. That's enough, right? Wasn't enough. Died again. Wasn't enough. So I kept dragging bottom until I was all the way on the streets of Charleston, South Carolina, living under a bridge in a hollowed out bush up against a fence with a pallet and a tent and some tarps and some crap that I stole from people's boats so I can call it a fishing camp. And that's how I was living for about a year and a half on the streets of South Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina. And I had a child, that was around 7 years old at that time. I had a wife who was divorcing me. I wasn't allowed to see my child. I had no means or ability to even see them, and I was just on to oblivion. So my best thinking got me to that place of homelessness, right? To that place of despair. And I'd given up. I don't know if anyone's ever given up before, but if you just decided that, hey, I'm just going to keep doing this, there's just no way out. Anybody? I'm just going to live like this. And then later on we find out in the big book that it describes that. It describes that state of mind, right? That we came to that jumping off place, where we decided that either we're just going to continue living like this, or we're going to take another path. Anyways, I walked into an AA meeting one day downtown to get myself some coffee and some donuts and find a Target. So, people would give me money to leave. I was disgusted. I really was. And to find myself another Target, and I sat down next to a guy. I was like, that guy's going to be an easy target. I sat down next to this guy. His name is John. I sat down next to this guy, and I started to spark up a conversation, and he opened his mouth, and when he spoke to me, something happened. Something happened, something permeated that chink in my armor that we hear about, and suddenly, I need to get a napkin. Is there a napkin over here somewhere? Tissue right there? Thanks. I'm going off camera. Okay, so he wants to go back outside and walk. That's all he wants to do. So I sat next to him, and he said something, and it permeated the chink in my armor, and I walked out of there punch drunk that day. and all full of hope that I could get sober. And I remained sober till the next day, and I came back again, and the same guy was there, and I sat next to him, and I listened to everything in the meeting, and he opened his mouth, and he said some stuff to me that, again, permeated me, and I heard it for the first time, you know, and it kept me sober again. So, you know, I was living at my little encampment, you know, and I was getting sober, so I was homeless as I started to get sober at Old Central, downtown Charleston. So that's what happened. I got sober, you know, I had about a year and a half, and by that time I had a year and a half, I had gotten everything back. I had a business, I had 5 or 6, 7 cars, so I was selling cars, I was working as a loader operator, I was, you know, I had my own house, which is a whole story in itself, but I'd bought a house and a couple of lots behind it as a parking lot, and I was helping homeless people off the streets, and I was involved in the AA program. And I went to work one night, and the conveyor belts were down I worked in a third shift in a recycling facility in Charleston, operate a loader. And the conveyor belts were down, and they sent us home early. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning, early, because this was the third shift. I go home, and I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? You know, I'm usually up all night long. Okay, I need to caulk this bathroom and finish this, painting this ceiling in this bathroom and get that going. And I go in there, and I get up on the ladder, and I'm running a bead of caulk. And a simple thought comes in my mind. I can do one. I can get one. It's going to be okay. I can do just one. And I had a cigar box in my room. And I got off the ladder, I went in my room, opened it up, thousands of dollars in there, right, cash. Pulled out a $20 bill. Then I got in my car, and it wasn't a minute later, and I was in the dope hole. And there's a black dude, you know, I got nothing against black dudes or women or any of that nature. I live in the hood. So there was a black dude, and he had gold teeth, and he had doors to his car open, and he had changed the lights in his car to red. And he's standing there. There's nobody else there. And I come pulling up, and I said, hey, he goes, hey, come on. He says, I got what you need. I get in the car, and he says, how much you want? I said, I just want a 20. He says, man, a 20? He says, you're going to come back for all of this. You might as well get it now. I was like, no, man, I just need a 20. Got that 20, sure enough, I came back and I got all that. You know, and it started a relapse that lasted 4 months. It was horrific. It's a spiritual deal. I think it's on a continuum, you know what I mean? You know, you can be this much spiritual, if you can be all the way down dark, you know, and you can see the devil and see the faces and demons and all of that crazy that we see, or you can just be a little bit bad. You can be like a shoplifter from Walmart, you know, or you can just be like, you know, okay, you know, I'm just gonna, you know, manipulate my friends, you know what I mean? Or you can keep coming up and you can just be a really good person, you know, rigorously honest, not recklessly honest, rigorously honest, right? But you know, at that time, when I relapsed, I did exactly what I do, and I went all the way down to dark. I mean, really dark, really bad. I saw it all. It was horrific. I'm going to spare you the details. I'm not here to tell you a war story. But it was so bad that I wound up sitting in my car by a soccer field, right, with this bag of sports equipment because I had regained my visitation with my son, and I was teaching him how to play sports that summer. And I'm watching these kids running on this soccer field, little kids, and I've got this sports bag, and I'm sitting in this car finishing up all this crack, you know? And the sun was coming up, and I just felt so empty and so filthy and just so bad, you know? So I got in my car and I went home and I snuck into my own house, you know, because I had roommates. I had people that I'd helped up off the streets and taken out of the rooms of recovery that were doing good and they were sober. And here I am, I'm the owner of the house and I'm in relapse mode. It was bad. And I slithered into my house and I got up into that room and, you know, I got in there and I got on my hands and knees and said, God, I don't know who you are. I don't know what you are. But if you are there and you exist, please take this from me. I can't live like this no more. I woke up the next day, and this is a true story. I woke up and I saw the mess in my room, and I started cleaning up. And I pulled. You ever see that Sherlock Holmes movie where Watson comes in and pulls the curtain and there's all that dust flying? I pulled the curtain, the sun's coming through, and the dust is flying. I'm like, ah, you know, and I start cleaning up my room, and then I come out and I see the filth in my hallway and in my bathrooms and my kitchen, and I start cleaning up, and I'm cleaning up, and I'm cleaning up. Sorry, I get a little emotional. And I'm cleaning up, and I come outside, and I see the sun on the horizon. I see all the filth in my backyard, you know, garbage bags and this and that. And I'm looking at the sun, and I'm like, wow, look at that sunrise. It's beautiful. And then all of a sudden, it went down. And I was like, whoa. I forgot to use. It was sunset. And I had said a genuine prayer, and I woke up, and here I am, a hard, cold, stone junkie. I mean, I'm using $1,000 a day. I'm liquidating my life. I'm stealing, I'm cheating, I'm robbing people, you know? And I forgot to use. I didn't use, I didn't have a drink, and it didn't even cross my mind, and I did that the whole day. I ran right back to my room, I got on my hands and knees, and I said, I don't know what happened here, I don't know who you are, I don't know what you are, but let's do this again. And I ran back to AA, and I said to them, this is what happened. I ran back to my job and I said, hey, this is what happened. I gave my job back, and it started my journey. And that I said that genuine prayer on April 15th, 2015. I have, on April 15th, I will have 10 years of continuous sobriety if I don't use, if I follow the program and I do what the program dictates of me. So here I am, you know, and I'm grateful for that. Really grateful, you know. I've got a life beyond my wildest dreams. But here's what I want to say, right? Because it's not about material stuff. It just isn't. It's not at all about anything material in my life. As a matter of fact, when I was chasing material stuff, it all eluded me. I never was able to get anything that I wanted, right, when I was in control, right? Everyone's got a journey. This is what I really believe. Everyone's got a journey. Everyone is unique. Every single one of you is unique. You all look different. You know, you all sit different. Though we're human beings, there's no one identical, not a person in this room that is identical, right? Not a one of you. So I had to learn. I had to learn, right, to stop hating. I had to learn that really what it was is that I hated myself, so I hated you. I just hated people in general, you know, and I didn't care whether you lived or died. You know, if you had what I wanted, I was going to get it. You know, if you were lucky, I'd pistol whip you. If you were unlucky, I probably shot you. You know, I wanted what I wanted, and I was going to get it. Rest, satisfaction out of the world. But here I come into this program, and I get a sponsor, you know, after I get sober for 30 days. I'm in my, 30 days. I get a little sponsor, you know, and people were guiding me, and they were encouraging me, you know, and I'm walking out of my tent in the woods, and I've got my tent cleaned up and property around my place cleaned up, and I'm going to the AA meetings 3 a day, and they're helping me out. I'm going to the churches, and they're giving me food and all of that, you know, and I got a sponsor, and it's teaching me how to live. You know, I panned all the way back to that before I relapsed. You know, relapsed, came back to the program, shared the news, because relapse is just something that happens. Because why? Because I'm powerless. I had to do the step one again. I had to illuminate every nook and cranny. I had to figure out what it was, right, that kept me going back out. Or why would I go back out? Why was I defenseless that night when I ran that bead of caulk in that bathroom? And there wasn't a cloud on the horizon. I was buying and selling cars. I had a whole bunch of cars for sale. I had a great job. I'm making $27 an hour. You know, I've got all these good things going on in my life. I've got a meeting. I'm connected. I own my own home. All of that. In 18 months, from being on the streets to owning my own, my own home and having my kid back, and I threw it all away over the simple idea that I could do a 20. Just a 20. It's just going to be a 20. It's going to be all right, right? Well, there's a part, I want to say that this is in the big book, right? I'm going to paraphrase a lot. I'm not one of those guys that memorizes big books, but I know the big book inside out. But, this goes around a lot, where I was rocketed into the fourth dimension. Rocketed into the fourth dimension. By doing the things that I was supposed to do, working my program, I was rocketed into the fourth dimension. And then what happens? Right? I run across, I get that 20, I stuff it in, right? I do that, and then all of a sudden I fall out of the fourth dimension back into the second dimension. I look at my arm and I've lost one more life, like Jumanji, And there's no way back. I can't find my way back out, right? Because I was granted a reprieve. I stand here today sober because I'm granted a reprieve. I came all the way from Charleston, South Carolina to talk to you all because it's that important for me to put my recovery first. When someone says recovery, this has got to do with your recovery, I'm on it, right? Was I always like that? No. But I became convinced when I worked the steps and I did the program and I started getting to that point where my sponsor's saying, okay, now you got to sponsor other people. You got to give it away. You got to give it back. You got to do this. You got to do that. You got to live in 11 and 12. Faith without works is dead. You said you would do anything to get sober. Now you got to help other people out the pit. You got to help others, right? And that's where the rubber hits the road. That's where the real miracles happen. That's where my life got real, really, really good, And when I'm gonna pan back to where I said each and every one of us is unique, right? Each and every one of us, if we quiet ourselves, our minds, our monkey brains enough to get to that point where we allow our higher power, who I do not understand at all, because that's a part of my humility, which I'll talk about in a minute. If I allow that God to show me what, I don't believe God is a dude. They just say him. I guess he could be a guy, but that's worn out. You know what I mean? God can be everything, all things. So I hesitate when I say him. So we'll just say her, right? So, if I allow her to change my life, right? Right? If I allow her to guide my thinking, right? And to take my will in my life and to make me an instrument and to do with me what she will please to do, amazing things are going to happen for your life. I do not know what your path is, what your path is, what your path is, your path, your path, your path. You might have an idea of what you want or what you think you are or what you fashioned yourself to be. You might have an idea. I might have an idea of what I want to be, or what I think I should be, right? But the fact of the matter is only to the extent that I became willing to change, only to the extent that I became willing to change, only to that extent that I get sober. Yeah? That's worth saying again. Only to that extent that I became willing to change, only to that extent that I get sober. Right? So you all get to decide how sober you want to be. You know what I mean? Your journey. right? But I could tell you that I let go absolutely 100%, and I ripped into that program. After that 18 months, when I got that reprieve, and I remember all that filthy crap that I did and happened to me in those 4 months, and the evil that I experienced, about 6 months, whatever it was, I went on a crusade. I was like, yes, AA, yes. What, do that? Yes. Help this guy? Yes. Help that guy? Yes. Without hesitating. Will you let that guy come to your house? Yeah, come on. Will you give that guy a ride up to Greenwood? Yes. Would you do this? Would you do? Yes, 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 yes. Does it have to do with recovery? The answer is yes. I am in. And I did a whole bunch of that. A whole bunch of that. There was a guy his name is Rocky. African-American dude. Love that dude. He was an old pimp. I mean, he was the real deal. He was a dope-slinging old pimp. You know, he had stories about growing weed in the house and his mother and this and that, all this crazy stuff. And I loved that guy, and he would share, and I loved that guy. And then it came to be wintertime, and people were bringing him coats and giving him coats, and he was collecting coats, and he'd take them out. He had a Lincoln. He had a blue Lincoln that fit him perfectly, you know, and he'd wear his hat. You know, he had his pimp hat and his chains, you know, and he was sober. And I would say, Rocky, what do you do with all these coats? He says, man, he says, I'm going to show you. He says, as a matter of fact, I've been thinking about you and what you're going to do this winter. I was like, what are you talking about? He says, I'll pick you up tonight. So he picks me up, and we start driving around the streets cruising. He goes, man, he says, I can't sleep at night. I said, me neither, man. He says, well, this is what I do. I cruise around. I was like, cruise around? You know, I'm thinking, well, what the hell are you doing? He says, I cruise around and I find people to give these coats to. And then I talk to them about recovery, and I give them my phone number, and if they want recovery, I bring them to AA and I help them out, you know? Excuse me. I help them out. So he started this thing with me, and I really loved it, and I found something that would just keep me, you know, when I was restless, I'd go out with him, and we'd go out and we'd find people to talk to and fellowship with, and we'd laugh with people on the streets. Those are my people. You know, those are my people. That's who I'm comfortable with. These are the people that I know. I mean, people that are down and out, living on the streets. These are my people. And it was great. So anyways, fast forward, Rocky passed away, you know, and I got a chance to be with him at the hospital, and I had the chance to see him die and smile and die with grace and dignity, you know, to refuse like the medications, you know, to just use a minimum amount so he can be sober-minded, and the love that people showed him, and they really loved him. They came and they saw him and all of that. And he passed. And when he passed away, next winter started coming around. It started getting the fall. One morning I was, you know, just doing my little thing, and an intuitive thought came to my mind. Oh, why don't you collect some coats and give out some coats to people this year in Rocky's honor? So anyways, this story goes back 8 years ago, 10 years ago, 9 years ago, whatever, way back. So anyways, I went and I started announcing to people that I'm collecting coats, and I made a flyer, Rocky's Coat Drive, and I put a picture of Rocky on there with a pimp hat, you know, and I'm running around collecting coats. And people are like, are you crazy? You know, you're not posting this stuff at the AA Clubhouse, and you don't got permission, and you can't announce that. And I started learning a lot of things that you can and cannot do. I'll tell you that much. But I went out and I gave out coats, and I started helping people, you know, get to here, get to there, you know, calling people. And I met, you know, like Sheila in Greenwood, and people here and people there, and helping these people off the streets and to get to recovery. And I'm crude. I'm not a refined person. I don't have a whole bunch of education. I don't have any degrees or anything of that nature, right? I'm crude. I'm posting this stuff on Facebook, and people are saying, what are you posting? This guy's giving him a coat on Facebook. Are you crazy? You know, this kind of stuff. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just feeling that this is what needs to happen. I don't know why I'm doing it. I'm just doing it because it feels like it's something, like I need to raise awareness to this issue. And this is going way back when there was a stigma. You know, people weren't treating homeless people too well 10 years ago. You know, they weren't treating people too well out there. People were just not paying attention to that whole situation. And I was posting that stuff on Facebook, and I was just staying calm, cool, and collecting in the spirit, and people were attacking me and different things like that. And I was like, you know what? This is why I did it, United States, and this is why I'm doing it, and this is why. And if y'all want to donate some coats, donate some coats. And people started calling me and donating coats, and we run around, and we'll help people off streets, and get a couple off to detox, and we start learning, okay, I start learning how to get people off detox, start learning how to get people off to rehab. And I'm learning. So I went off on a venture to help people, to help myself, right? To help myself from the insomnia that I would have at night, because I was used to being an all up all night drinking and drugging and doing all that stuff, to, you know, finding something healthy to do with my life. So it grew. So I kept doing that thing, and then it has grown. And yes, I am a member of a board of directors of a not-for-profit enterprise that I founded and co-founded with another woman that I picked up off the streets and took to detox and rehab 5-6 years ago. And then we found some people over on the other side of the bridge in Mount Pleasant that had the same kind of problems, but in different circumstances. And we got a director for the board, and we got a CPA, and a lawyer, and a professor, and all kinds of people like that. So we're 6 people. And then we put that nonprofit, we got a mentor, Kathy from the K Foundation mentored us for a year. She showed up on our Zoom meetings, and she gave us all of her documents, and because she's very successful. She's done like 600 and almost 700 people off the streets. She's a nationwide person that helps people. She lost her son. So Kathy from the K Foundation lost her son when he's 16 or 17 years old to an overdose. She's from Long Island. Did you picture that? I mean, I don't know, some of you might have experienced that. So I hope I never lived to experience something like that. But she translated that pain into a foundation that helps other people off the streets and into detox and rehab. So I've got profound respect for her. So she showed up for us, and she helped us, and all this stuff happened. And since we opened the doors, and we started helping people off the streets as a not-for-profit, we have collected donations and taken 12 people off the streets and sent them to detox and rehab, or helped them to get to a facility, right? Since I started doing that with Rocky and these 12 people, I've done it 120 times. I'm right now sitting at 120. I always had God let me have a hand in helping 120 people off the streets into rehab. This just started with hanging out with Rocky, driving around, talking to some people, and giving out a coat, right? And my willingness and my prayer is, God, use me. I'm simple. I don't have any great prayers. I haven't memorized any great things, right? But I've come to believe in a higher power. So when I started this conversation, I said to you all that I have empirical proof, right? Empirical proof that God exists. This is the empirical proof, right? Is that when I became willing to help another person out, right? And I put all of my heart and soul into helping other people, God gave me, in return, a life beyond my wildest dreams. Opportunity after opportunity after opportunity after opportunity presented itself. And I'm 61. Last year when I was 60, I retired. And I dedicated the rest of my life, right? One day at a time, to helping other people out. And I'm in that unique position. I lived under a bridge. I had nothing. I had a divorce lawyer that was looking for me, right? A kid I couldn't see, right? And a wife that was spitting venom. She hated my guts, I'd brought her from another country. She hated my guts, you know, and today I can talk to that person when needed, right? We're co-parenting. Our son's in college. He's aspiring. I mean, amazing, right? He doesn't have what I have. You know, he's going to be 20 in June. And to being able to wake up without having any real thought as to how I'm going to pay my bills, right? And my days are filled with that phone call coming in and me saying, yes, let me get on that. Let me help that person, right? So that's my empirical proof, right? Because I did say in the beginning of this conversation that I would go to prison and I would figure out how I'm going to do it better and better and better. And I'm going to do it like this and like that and like this and like that and like this. And then I'd wind up, my best thinking wound me up broke. You know, my scorecards were at 0. You know, wired out, crawling on the floor, looking for a crumb. That was my best thinking. That's where my best thinking got me. I don't ever want to feel like that again. Ever want to feel like that again. As a matter of fact, I've done enough work, right? See the steps and the traditions on the wall. I've done enough work, right, where I wasn't returned to sanity because I was insane. I was raised to be insane, right? I was brought to sanity for the very first time. I've done enough work now, right? I've done enough work now where I am repulsed by the idea of taking a drink or a mind-altering substance. I'm repulsed by the idea of hurting myself in any manner or form. And I've been brought to a place in my life where now I'm on a self-preservation kick. You know, slowly, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. In my case, slowly. I didn't get it. You know, I just didn't get it. But here I am, right? So it's so important, right, to talk to people in detoxes. They have meetings in the treatment centers and in the jails and all stuff like that, to talk to people that are still not convinced that this is how I'm going to operate, you know, to get sober, right? So, you know, being an example, a good example of somebody that's really taken these steps and worked these, not memorize the steps. I'm not talking about intellectual prowess. I can't remember someone's name right after they tell me their name, right? I can't remember what I had for breakfast this morning. I don't have a memory of any of that. I can't read these steps to you verbatim, even though I probably can a little bit paraphrase them, as I said earlier, right? But what I can tell you is the embodiment. In other words, the permeation, how this stuff has been absorbed by my being, right? The embodiment of these steps in my program, by working this program, has made me whole, has made me into a whole different person, right? And it happened in places like this, where the walls don't look too good. Oh my gosh, popcorn ceiling, you know, living in a room with another person, maybe 2. I don't know about that, but I'll tell you, to the extent that I became willing to get sober, you know, when God takes over your life, you can explode into joy and gratitude and love, agape love, you know, and really, really, really can overcome. If I can get past my mind, you know, I can become somebody. If I could just get past the idea that somehow I'm going to win it all at a pass because I am so smart, I am so unique, I am so gifted, I'm so chosen, don't you know who I am? Kind of thing. You know what I mean? If I can get past my ego and get that to the right size point, then I'm going to win, right? I'm going to win. It's a guarantee. It's a promise. It's a promise. I'm going to win, right? And this is where I'm going to say that, right? My humility is based on my size. And my size is so micro small and so small in relation to the vastness of the universe. They say infinitum, infinity. So in regards to infinity, a mass that goes infinitely, I'm nothing at all. I'm not even a speck. I mean, if it's infinite, I'm not even a speck, right? I'm that small. So my humility is that I do not know. I do not know. Jesus, yes. Moses, yes. Buddha, yes. Yes, 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 yes. It's all, if it has to do with God, yes. Okay, yeah, I agree. Yes. Because I am sober, because something outside of myself granted me a reprieve and took me out of myself, took me from the bottom of the heap and picked me up and put me on the top with no special degrees. I didn't use a bunch of guns to get there. I didn't have no posse, you know, right? And I'm a dumbass. And I still got there by helping other people out, by following this formula. So this is something very interesting. I want to talk about contempt, right? You know, a soul, a clean heart, right? Can't hold contempt for another human being. That's a hard one, y'all. That's how I base my spiritual condition. I was just walking Scout over by the Circle K. And there was a dude, and he was gimpy, and he was gimping across the back of the grass. And Scout jumps, he wants to kill people that are gimpy. He jumps up, "Arr!" You know, he's trying to pull up towards him and, you know, boo him off. And the guy's looking at the dog and trying to get away. And I'm looking at the dude, and I'm like, man, that poor soul, you know. I pray that he's, you know, finds a path and it's got something good going on in his life and that, you know, God's got him. It is hard to love the unlovable, but the secret in the sauce is that. Only to the extent that I became willing to change and that I learned how to not hold another living being in contempt. You are all my species. We come from the same thing. Right? If I'm going to hold you in contempt, I got to first hold myself in contempt. So it's got to pass through my filter. I've got to hate me before I can hate you. I got to hate myself before I can hate you. You know? And so, you know, that's my natural default, though. I had become one mean son of a bitch at one time. I know you guys find it hard to believe. I tell people that, and I'm like, really, seriously, I'm fucking mean. Do you believe it? You know, it's gone, right? It's been removed, right? So, and I was, and I did live that life, and I couldn't rub two nickels together, you know, not two, and keep them for a long period. It all vanished. So, I don't know if you all got anything out of that, right? But I encourage each and every one of you, you know, everyone's on a journey, everyone's on a path. There's a lot of unsurety. You know, our old ideas and the conditioning that we have and the things that we bring, you know, with us, the baggage that we have from our past and stuff like that. You know, once I get to that place where I'm like, okay, I can give this a try. I can make this happen, right? Then synchronicity kicks in. Synchronicity kicks in, right? That's when God shows you the impossible, right? In early recovery, without a doubt, each and every one of you experienced synchronicity, right? Where it's like, whoa, dude, how did that happen? That couldn't have happened. You know, how was I thinking about that? We did that, and that happened, and that happened, and that happened. It's like, whoa, signs and wonders. In early recovery, that's what you're going to see. God's going to give you some breadcrumbs along the path. You know, I'm real. Believe in me, and you will see signs and wonders, and you will see miracles. You know? And then you go along and it's like, okay, so you got the breadcrumb trail and now you're here at this place, right? Now you're here at this place. Now I'm going to test you. Here comes the trials, right? I'm going to test your faith. Did you believe me? Here, try this. Your dad dies. Your mother passes away. Your brother gets hit by a car. You lose everything you own. Right? That is when you're going to find out, right, if your faith is real. Right? The tests are going to come. They're going to come. Am I going to go back out and use? Am I going to go against, who I'm supposed to be, my destiny, God's plan for me, that unique person I am? Or am I going to throw in the towel and say, I don't know if this is good or bad. It's just a thing I don't use no matter what. No matter what. I don't use no matter what. Is it good or bad? I don't know. It's just a thing. Right? And as I've learned how to just deal with it as just a thing, the things that I thought were bad turned out to be the biggest blessings in my life. Right? So I encourage you all to join the No Matter What Club. Right? That I am not going to drink or drug or use mind-altering substances no matter what. That I'm going to join the No Matter What Club, right? And I'm going to do this work. I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. I'm going to stop comparing myself to the next individual in the room, right? And I'm going to see me as a whole, complete human being that's worthy of the gifts of life. And I'm going to manifest those gifts in my life, and I'm going to become the person that I was meant to be. Don't know who that is, but I can tell you what, as soon as I let go, and the more I let go, the more I see, right? So that's what I came all the way up here from Charleston, South Carolina. I went to Greenwood first. So I came up from Charleston and, right? And on top of it, what's going on? We're having a little conversation here. I came up from Charleston, South Carolina, and on top of it, my favorite band is playing in the park in Charleston today, and all my friends are texting me, I got an extra ticket, and are you coming today? And we're dancing and we're grooving. And I'm like, no, I'm up here and I'm going to talk to these people and share my experience, my strength, and my hope today. Let you know that only to the extent that I became willing to change, only to that extent that I get sober. Right? Only to the extent that I became willing to change, only to that extent that I get sober. That there is a power so vast and so great in this universe that I barely even am a speck. So I don't understand it. So if someone says to me, God, yes. God, yes. I already have empirical proof, right? I do good things and good things happen. I have empirical proof. I do bad things and bad things happen. I got empirical proof. I studied all these different religions and tried to, this is when I was in prison, man, I go back and forth. I fought all this philosophy, because I was going to be great. I promise you I was going to be great. Studied all the philosophers and correspondence courses, and I wound up in a prison that had a college in the campus, and I went to college for a little bit. I never got a degree. But I did all these different things because I was going to be a better criminal. I was going to win at a pass. I was going to be a multi-millionaire because money was the solution, right? Right, and I'd wind up, I got out of prison one time, I'll share this with you. I don't want to take too much here, but you all aren't going anywhere. You guys are the best audience because you're a captive audience. I'm just kidding. I figured I'd throw a little joke there. But from what I understand, the door's open and you all can leave anytime. So I was just joking. But I got out of prison one time, and I had worked out and I was buff. Didn't have any. I was running marathon. I was training marathon, and I had given up all of the. I was eating right, and I was stock. I got out of prison, and they give you $200. They give you $200, and they release you, and they take you to the bus station. And I went to the bus station, and the bus stop had a stop, and they were going to stop for 10 minutes, and there was a convenience store. Now, I've been in prison all those years, and I walked in the store, and I bought me a 40. And I walked out, and I got on the bus, and I started drinking. After all that I've been through, I went to rehab in prison, I went to college in prison, I went to AA meetings, I went to NA meetings, I spoke, I sponsored, I did all of it. And there I was in the back of the bus drinking. By the next stop, I had a girlfriend. A girl that got on the bus that became my drinking buddy almost immediately. Right? And the next stop, I got off the bus, and I went to this cheesy hotel, and would have got myself a bunch of crack, and I'm in a hotel room with this girl smoking crack, right? The rest of my little $100 and something, right? And there I was, out of luck, at it again, after all those years, right? So, I had to do a perfect step one. I really did. I had to really come to terms with the idea that I do not got a dog in this fight. That I am not able to stop of my own accord. There's no way. I tried it over and over again. I'm going to control it. I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to do it like that. I'm just going to do a 20. I told you all the story about doing a 20. I'm just going to do a 20. And that's where that brought me. It brought me down. And I'm lucky I lived. And now when I think about all that I've been through and where I came from and how I got there, I realize that it was the hand of God that kept me alive. Right? Whatever God y'all want to believe in. It's your choice. It's just fast. So I'm going to say this and then I'm going to end it. You missed the whole thing, but you got it on video.
Hey.
I posed this question to you all today, and this was a question that was posed to me. I'm a man of many loopholes. I want to know the fast way. I want to know how to get there from zero to everything in the shortest period of time. This is it right here, and you get to choose. I'm going to tell you the secret. I came all the way up here to tell you the secret. God is everything, or God is nothing. You get to choose. Right? There are times in my life, even today, where I fall into doubt, you know what I mean, where things get a little dark, I get a little depressed, right? And I quickly see how it's just me that's fallen out of it. It's still there, nothing happened, the whole thing is there. It really did happen. I was sliding down that rainbow, catching magic charms, diamonds, and whatever. That really happened, right? But right now, I'm just feeling dark, and all I have to do to get back to that, right, is to work my program, 11, 11, 12. It works like nothing else works. Anytime I reach out to another still sick and suffering addict, alcoholic, one of my people, and I don't hold them in contempt, and I genuinely want to share with them everything that I got so freely, my life blossoms. It blooms. Everything becomes wonderful, happy, joyous, and free. Is it all the time? No. It's just contingent. It's a contingency, y'all. Contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual condition. There is no permanent fix for what I got. I suffer from the human condition. I'm a human being. You know? But today I'm a human being, I'm not a human doing. Right? I get to be. Y'all are just enough. I love all of you, you know, and I hope that you got something out of what I had to say today. Good?
Thank you.